My wife once laughed drunkenly and said, "You're not the man I dream of." I didn't respond. Instead, I made one quiet move that shattered the world she thought was so perfect. I met Olivia, 28, vibrant, magnetic back in college. She was effortlessly cool, the kind of person who never seemed to try too hard but always made everything look easy. She was constantly laughing, always surrounded by friends, always coming up with some last-minute wild idea. I was the opposite: study hard, stay focused, plan for the future. Despite our differences, we clicked. We started dating in junior year, and I fell fast and hard. Life with her felt electric. It was like I hadn't really lived before she came into my world. After graduation, we moved in together, and I thought, this is it. This is the woman I'm going to spend my life with. A few years later, we were married. I had a solid career, a stable income, and I was focused on building a strong foundation for us. Olivia, meanwhile, was still searching, hopping between jobs, trying different hobbies, unsure of what she really wanted. That never bothered me. I earned enough to support us both, and I wanted her to have the freedom to find what made her happy. I was patient, glad to be. But over time, things started changing. Slowly at first. She'd come home later and later, always with a new excuse: work ran late, drinks with friends, lost track of time. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She was social. She had a wide circle. I didn't want to be the possessive husband who panics every time his wife is out. But the excuses piled up, and something felt off. Her responses grew vague, empty. I'd ask about her evening, and she'd give me a quick "it was fine," then switch topics. There were other signs, too. She barely touched me anymore, stopped holding my hand, stopped leaning into me on the couch. Now she sat at the far end, glued to her phone, distant. I told myself it was just a rough patch. Maybe stress. Maybe something she couldn't articulate. So I tried harder. I brought home her favorite food, organized date nights, gave her space when she seemed to need it. But none of it helped. The more I reached out, the more she drifted. One night, I made her favorite dinner, nothing extravagant, just something I knew she liked. I texted her, "What time will you be home?" She replied, "Be there soon." That was at 7 p.m. By 10, I was still sitting at the table, alone, staring at her untouched plate. She finally walked in around midnight, completely unfazed. "Oh, hey," she said casually. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, barely more than a brush, then went straight to the bedroom. She didn't ask why I was still up. Didn't ask why I looked upset. Didn't even acknowledge that she'd completely blown me off. That was the moment I knew something was seriously wrong. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started paying closer attention. I noticed how she smiled at her phone more than she smiled at me. How she suddenly always had plans that never included me. She was constantly texting someone, and whenever I glanced over, she'd subtly tilt her screen away. I wasn't naive. I knew something was going on. But instead of jumping to accusations, I decided to pull back just to see what would happen. I stopped initiating conversations, stopped texting first, stopped asking how her day was. I wanted to know if she'd notice. She didn't. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. That's when the self-doubt began to creep in. I started questioning everything. Where had I gone wrong? I kept replaying moments in my head, looking for signs I must have missed. Maybe I'd been deluding myself all along, seeing what I wanted to see instead of what was really there. Her comments echoed in my mind with a new weight. "You're such a planner, Jared. You always play it safe. Don't you ever want to do something crazy?" I used to laugh at those, brush them off as harmless jokes. But now they felt like subtle warnings I chose to ignore. I had given her stability, built a life of security and careful steps, thinking I was offering her something valuable. But the more I gave, the more distant she became. I couldn't make sense of it. Why wasn't it enough? What was I missing? Eventually, I realized I couldn't keep waiting for things to magically fix themselves. I had to try something, anything, if there was still a chance to salvage what we had. After thinking it over for days, I planned a weekend getaway. Just the two of us. A quiet cabin in the mountains. No distractions. No friends. No phone calls. Just us. She agreed, but her reaction was telling. No excitement. No, that sounds amazing. Or thank you for planning this. Just a half-hearted nod, like I told her I was getting the oil changed. That night, I packed our bags. Hers was nearly empty, thrown together with zero effort, like she was heading off to be held hostage rather than escape on a romantic trip. I pushed the feeling aside. The next morning, we hit the road. It was a 4-hour drive, and she spent at least 3 of them glued to her phone. I tried talking, asked about work, her friends, even the trashy reality show she used to binge. Her replies were minimal. Yeah, that was it. No elaboration. No interest in what I had to say. Just the sound of scrolling. I told myself she was tired. That I was reading too much into it. The cabin, at least, was beautiful. Secluded. Peaceful. Surrounded by nothing but trees and silence. I had imagined the weekend going so differently, us unwinding, having real conversations, maybe even finding a way to fix whatever had gone wrong. But the moment we walked into the cabin, she barely glanced around before asking, "Do we have service out here?" Not, "Wow, this place is beautiful," or "Thanks for planning this, Jared." Just, "Do we have service?" I should have taken that as my sign to turn around and drive home. But instead, I forced a smile and said, "Yeah, but it's spotty." Probably a good thing, right? She didn't respond. We spent the day hiking while I did. She trailed behind, distracted, barely taking in the views. I reached for her hand, but she kept adjusting her backpack like she needed an excuse not to touch me. Eventually, we made it to this stunning overlook, one of those spots where the world just opens up in front of you, like something out of a painting. I turned to say something, to share the moment with her. She was staring at her phone. That was it. That was the moment it truly sank, and this wasn't just a rough patch. She wasn't pulling away because of stress or needing space. She was gone. She had already checked out, and I was the fool still trying to hold things together. That night, we sat by the fire. I made a simple dinner: grilled chicken, some potatoes. She barely ate, just picked at it while staring into the flames like they held all the answers she didn't want to say out loud. I sat there in silence, stealing glances at her, the space between us heavy with everything we weren't saying. I wanted to ask. I wanted to finally bring it all to the surface. But something in the way she sat and how she avoided my eyes told me I wouldn't like the answer. So I didn't. I just kept the night going, offering her another drink. She took it without hesitation and poured herself another. She was starting to sway, drunk enough that the truth, unfiltered and raw, began to spill out. Then, out of nowhere, she let out this sharp, bitter laugh. Not the laugh I used to know. Not warm, not playful, cold, almost mocking. "You want to know something funny?" She slurred, tilting her head. "I've never been attracted to you. I just pretended." She laughed again. I frowned, setting my glass down. "What does that mean?" She smirked, swirling her drink slowly. "You try so damn hard, Jared. Always have." She shook her head like she pitied me. Like it's ever going to matter. My chest tightened. "What are you talking about?" She leaned forward, resting her chin in her hand. Her eyes were hazy, but locked on mine. "You think being a good guy is enough? That being stable, dependable, nice, makes you someone I should want?" She gave a small, humorless laugh. "But that's never what I wanted." I felt something cold settle in my gut. "Olivia," I started, but she waved her hand, cutting me off. I used to tell myself I'd learn to love it. That maybe one day I'd wake up and be happy with a quiet life, a guy who takes care of me, plans everything, makes sure I never have to worry. But God, Jared, do you know how boring that sounds? I couldn't respond. I just stared at her, my heart sinking into something hollow and cold. It felt like I was sitting across from a stranger, someone I never really knew at all. It felt like the woman sitting across from me wasn't the same person I had spent years loving. She was someone else entirely, someone who had been holding this in, waiting for the perfect moment to break me down. And now that she had, there wasn't even a hint of remorse. She just kept talking, tossing aside everything we'd built like it was some old chapter she'd simply outgrown. I wanted to feel something: anger, heartbreak, anything, but instead, I felt nothing. Just numb. She stared into the fire, lost in her thoughts. "I need excitement," she said. "Someone who keeps me guessing, who doesn't follow every rule. Someone who doesn't ask how my day was like it actually matters." She shook her head slowly. "I need someone different." I just sat there, staring at her like I'd been punched in the chest. "Different," I repeated, my voice empty. She nodded, completely blind to the damage she was doing. "Someone with edge. A little reckless. Someone who doesn't always do the right thing." Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and blinked, almost like she was only now realizing what she saw. "You're too safe." And there it was. I had spent years doing everything I could to be the best man I could be for her. I gave her the stability I never had growing up, worked hard to provide for us, to shield her from every kind of hardship. And now she was telling me it never mattered, that it never would. I swallowed hard, my jaw tightening. "And you're just now telling me this?" She shrugged, indifferent. "Guess I don't feel like pretending anymore." I leaned back, silent. She watched me, maybe expecting a fight, breakdown, some desperate plea for her to stay. But I wasn't about to give her that. I wasn't going to give her anything. I nodded once. "All right." her brows knit together in confusion. That's it. I let out a slow breath, barely looking at her. What else is there? My voice was flat, distant. You've made yourself clear. I'm not what you want. So, okay. She blinked like she hadn't expected me to take it so calmly, like she wanted a reaction. And in that moment, I couldn't even tell if she was really drunk or just pretending to be. I sat there, staring at her with a quiet steadiness I knew would rattle her. I'm not going to grovel, Olivia. I'm not going to reshape myself to fit some fantasy version of the man you think you need, I said. And I'm sure as hell not going to apologize for treating you well. She opened her mouth to say something, but faltered. The certainty in her eyes wavered. I pushed my chair back and stood, slow and deliberate. I'm going to bed. She didn't stop me. Looking back, all the signs were there. She started dodging my calls, spending more time away. There was some guy's name that kept showing up. Suddenly, her schedule was full of plans I wasn't part of. I could have played detective, checked her phone, dug through conversations, maybe even confronted the guy. But sitting there in the dark, I realized I didn't even care. Strange, right? No urge to chase the truth. No desire to win her back. Just the nothing. By morning, my mind was made up. She just didn't know it yet. And when she woke up, she acted like none of it had happened. She got up, stretched, and yawned like it was any ordinary morning, as if she hadn't just detonated our entire relationship the night before. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her move around the cabin, waiting to see if she'd say anything. She didn't. Finally, I asked, "Do you remember what you said last night?" She paused. "I was drunk, Jared. I don't remember much." But I saw it in her eyes. She remembered everything. She just didn't have the courage to own it. I could have called her out, could have said, "Don't lie to me." I could have told her I wasn't blind, that I'd known something had been off for months. But I didn't. Instead, I just nodded and let her think I bought it. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to fight for her anymore. I wasn't going to beg for her affection. If she wanted more something else, then fine. Let her find out what life was like without me carrying the entire relationship on my back. So I started pulling away. No more good morning texts. No more checking in on her day. No more planning date nights or picking up her favorite snacks on my way home. I didn't get angry. I didn't turn cold. I just stopped. At first, I don't think she noticed. Or maybe she did and felt relieved. But then gradually I saw the change. She started reaching for me in subtle ways, touching my arm during a conversation, sitting closer on the couch instead of staying at the far end. She laughed harder at my dumb jokes, the ones she used to ignore. She wasn't doing it because she missed me. She was doing it because she could feel me slipping away. I wasn't the one holding on anymore. A week later, we were back home. I could tell she was uneasy. She kept glancing at me when she thought I wasn't looking, biting her lip like she wanted to say something, but didn't know how. Then, one night, I caught her just watching me. We were both on our phones, but hers wasn't even lit up. She wasn't scrolling. She was staring. "You've been different," she finally said. I looked up. "Yeah." She hesitated. "Is everything okay?" I shrugged. "I'm fine." She didn't like that answer. I could tell by the way her fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. She expected me to ask her if she was okay, to pull her close, to say I loved her, to beg her to open up. I didn't. That's when I knew the dynamic had completely shifted. A few days later, the little signs multiplied. She started dressing up more even when she wasn't going anywhere. She began asking where I was going, who I was with, what I was doing. One night, I mentioned I was grabbing dinner with my buddy Elliot, and she perked up. "Oh, where at?" she asked. I shrugged. "Not sure yet." She hesitated. "I could come with you." That was a first. For the past 6 months, she'd avoided plans with me like it was her job. I just smiled. "No, just the guys tonight." She let out a small laugh. I saw it, the way her jaw tensed, the way her eyes shifted. She was unraveling. And then one night, I left my phone in the living room by accident. When I woke up, I realized she'd gone through it. I wasn't even mad. Honestly, I thought it was kind of hilarious. She was digging, looking for anything, any hint that I had mentally checked out. She wanted to reclaim some sense of control, to feel like she was still the one holding the reins. But there was nothing for her to grab onto. And then, just like a script, everything unraveled in the most predictable way possible. Turns out she'd been seeing someone. Not just a one-night thing or a drunken mistake, but actually dating someone else behind my back for months. The irony. When the truth came out, she hit me with a classic. "I never found you attractive. You're boring." After 8 years together, that was her line. Pathetic. I almost laughed at how desperate it sounded. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was just trying to justify what she'd done, to rewrite the story so she could live with herself. But she had gotten so careless with her lies, so sloppy with the whole act, it was honestly embarrassing to watch. Truth is, it didn't even hurt. I was already done. Still, she must have thought I was oblivious that I was still hopelessly in love with her because she stopped even trying to hide it. Maybe she was too distracted by how distant I'd become. Maybe she got too comfortable. Either way, one night she left her laptop open on the kitchen counter. And there it was, her messages. I didn't go looking. I didn't need to. But something in me already knew. I clicked. I read. And there they were, texts from him. Not just a few recent ones, months of conversation. Dozens of messages. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. Does he suspect anything? I just scrolled through them like I was reading some forgettable chain of emails. No emotion. No rage. Just silence. I closed the laptop and went to bed. I didn't wake her. I didn't confront her. I didn't say a word. Because I'd already made up my mind. The next morning, I went about my routine like nothing had happened. Shower. Coffee. Calm. And then I called my lawyer. By the time she woke up, the wheels were already in motion. She had no idea. And I wasn't about to give her the courtesy of a warning. I wanted her to feel the shift. I wanted her to wake up one day and realize she'd lost me before she even understood that I was worth fighting for. She wanted more. She was about to get exactly that. A few days after I made the call, Elliot reached out. Now, Elliot isn't the kind of guy who likes drama. He keeps to himself, stays in his lane. So when he phoned out of the blue, hesitant and uneasy, I already knew what it was about. Jared, he started, his voice cautious. I don't know how to say this, but I saw Olivia last night. He paused. She was at a bar someplace downtown with a guy. They weren't just talking. I closed my eyes and exhaled. Where? The junction. Near the back, by the booths. I didn't flinch. No shock. No anger. No gut punch of betrayal. Because deep down, I had known. The texts. The distance. The way she'd started treating me like a footnote. Elliot had just confirmed what my instincts had been screaming for months. You good? He asked after a beat. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah, I'm good. You want me to do anything? No, I said. I got it. And I did. I already knew exactly what needed to be done. That night, I told Olivia I had to work late and wouldn't be home for dinner. She barely reacted, just muttered okay without looking up from her phone. Around 9 p.m., I parked my car 2 blocks from the junction and waited. I didn't know how long I'd be sitting there, but I had a gut feeling I wouldn't have to wait long. Sure enough, by 9:30, she walked out of our apartment building. She wasn't dressed like she was meeting friends, no heels, no flashy dress. Just jeans, a crop sweater, and that one bag she only ever carried when she wasn't planning to come home right away. I followed her. I didn't need to get close, just enough to keep her in sight. She walked quickly, like she was on a mission. I already knew where she was headed, but I had to see it with my own eyes. When she went into the junction, I stayed back, gave it a few minutes, then stepped inside. I kept to the shadows near the entrance, just watching. And there he was. The guy was everything I wasn't. While I kept things clean and put together, he was rough around the edges, tattoos snaking up his arms, smug grin plastered across his face. He looked like the type who'd never had to earn anything the hard way. But what really hit me was how she looked at him. Like she couldn't wait to be near him. She slid into the booth beside him, immediately leaned in close, and he draped his arm around her like it was second nature. She melted into him. No hesitation. I stood there a moment, just watching, letting it land. Then I pulled out my phone, took a picture, and walked out. No confrontation. Just cold, undeniable proof. By the time I got back to my car, I had already sent the photo to my lawyer. Start the paperwork. Over the next few days, I barely spoke to Olivia. At first, I don't think she noticed. She was too caught up in whatever fantasy she'd built to realize how quiet I'd become. I pulled back hard. Stopped checking in. Came home late without offering a reason. She asked questions, pushed for answers, but I gave her nothing but silence. The real shift happened when I quietly moved most of our shared money into a separate account. Nothing shady, just protecting what was mine. That's when her entire demeanor flipped. Suddenly, she was sweet, clingy. The "I love you" started falling out of her mouth like loose change. She brought up date nights, started talking about vacations, even suggested some spontaneous romantic getaway. It was almost comical, watching her scramble. I turned down every single one of her attempts. Then came the morning she checked our shared account. The look on her face when she realized most of the money was gone priceless. She tried to play it cool, but I saw her hands trembling as she stared at her phone, scrolling, double-checking, panicking. I knew her spending habits. The weekly spa visits. The last-minute shopping splurges. The overpriced lunches with her new friend. All of it was about to come crashing down. She kept glancing at me, probably waiting for a reaction. Waiting for me to say something. I didn't. Just kept sipping my coffee, reading the news like it was any other morning. A week later, the divorce papers were ready. I came home and found her curled up on the couch in her usual spot, eyes glued to her phone like it held all the answers. Maybe she was waiting for his reply. Maybe she was hoping this was just a nightmare she'd wake up from. She didn't even look up when I walked in. I stood there for a moment, just watching. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of everything she'd done had finally settled on her shoulders. Like she already knew what was coming. I pulled the envelope from my pocket and dropped it on the coffee table. The sharp thud of paper on wood made her flinch. Slowly, she set her phone down and reached for it. The moment she flipped it over and saw the words at the top, her whole body tensed. She swallowed hard and looked up at me, eyes wide and full of panic. "Jared," she said, her voice cracking, this isn't necessary." I let out a dry laugh. "Yeah? And why is that?" She shook her head, fumbling for words, anything that might make me reconsider. "We can work this out," she finally said, forcing a shaky smile. "We don't need to do anything drastic." "Drastic?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Like spending years with someone you were never actually into?" She winced. "I never said that," she whispered. I crossed my arms. "You did. You just don't remember. Or maybe you're pretending not to." "Jared, I was drunk." "You know that." "Yeah," I said quietly. But drunk words still come from somewhere. Her gaze dropped to the papers, avoiding mine. I took a step closer, my voice calm but unwavering. "Tell me, Olivia, how long have you known?" She looked up, confused. "Known what?" "That I was never what you wanted," I said. "How long have you known?" Her mouth opened, then closed again. There was no right answer, and she knew it. Finally, she let out a shaky breath. "It's not that simple." I let out a genuine laugh this time. "Of course that's what you'd say." "No, Olivia," I continued, shaking my head. "It actually is that simple." Tears started to gather in her eyes, her fingers gripping the envelope, so tightly the corners began to bend. "I didn't. I gave you everything." I cut in, my voice steady. "I loved you. I built my life around you. I thought I was making you happy. And the whole time, you were just keeping me around like some kind of backup plan. Like I was just safe." A soft sob escaped her, but I didn't let up. "You said you needed more," I said, watching her break down. "Well, congratulations. You got it. Now you get to chase whatever thrill you've been looking for." She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Jared, please. I made a mistake. We can fix this." "No," I said firmly. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Over and over again." She wiped at her face, trembling. "I don't even know why I did it," she whispered. And just like that, the last bit of whatever hold she had on me disappeared. "You didn't ruin everything," I said quietly. "You just reminded me I deserve better." She broke down completely, hand covering her mouth as the sobs took over. I grabbed my keys off the counter and walked to the door. Just before I stepped out, I looked back one final time. "You wanted excitement," I said, voice calm. "Go find it." And then I left her sobs muffled behind the closed door, feeling lighter than I had in years. Honestly, it was better than any therapy session. After everything, I turned my focus inward, started rebuilding myself. Meanwhile, she did exactly what I expected, acted like she was thriving. Social media became her stage, photos of nights out, fancy cocktails, exaggerated smiles. The kind of curated happiness people post when they're desperate to convince the world and themselves that they're okay. She wanted it to look effortless, like she'd moved on without missing a beat. For a moment, I almost believed it. Thought maybe she really had found happiness. But life has a funny way of leveling things out. Word got back to me, mutual friends said the guy she left me for ghosted her completely. No explanation, no closure. Just vanished. Stopped responding, unfollowed her, disappeared like he was never there. The thrill she chased? Gone. Then came the job. She'd always coasted through, putting in minimal effort, charming her way out of accountability. But that only works for so long. Eventually, people stopped playing along. She got laid off. Official reason was downsizing or restructuring, but everyone knew it was because she wasn't pulling her weight. Her party friends. They hung around for a bit. But when the money dried up and the vibe changed, they bailed too. One by one, the same people she had prioritized over me were nowhere to be found when she actually needed support. As for me, it's been 8 months since everything went down, and honestly, life's been great. I moved into a killer apartment downtown. Turns out, when you're not bankrolling someone else's shopping sprees, you can actually enjoy your own money. I got back into rock climbing and started dating someone new, Sabrina, from the gym. She's something else. She gets excited about the simple stuff. Last week, we grabbed cheap tacos and wandered the city for hours. It was more meaningful than any expensive dinner I ever had with my ex. Best part? She's independent. Pays for her own stuff. Makes her own money. Wild concept, right? The funniest twist? My ex messaged me last week. Hey, can we talk? I just stared at my phone and laughed. Didn't even open it. Word is, after her rebound guy kicked her out, she's been couch surfing. Guess the grass wasn't greener after all. Looking back, my only real regret is wasting 3 years on someone who saw me as nothing more than a walking ATM. But hey, sometimes you've got to go through the worst to truly appreciate the best. Oh, and yeah, this post kind of blew up. Appreciate all the awards and support. And to those asking, yes, Sabrina knows everything. And no, I'm not giving the ex a second chance. Oh no. Dear listeners, if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss future updates.